Hello, friends, and welcome back to Seven Aligned Podcast. My name is Jillian, and today we are talking about the Republic of Ireland and St. Patrick's Day, or why I think it's okay to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. I think there might be space for a discussion about cultural appropriation in regards to St. Patrick's Day, just because, in its essence, St. Patrick's Day is celebrating a country other than your own, unless you're Irish, of course. I think it's kind of interesting that we have a whole very popular holiday in the United States of America that practically celebrates another country that's not the United States of America. There's not a lot of space for that in America these days. Name one other holiday that celebrates a different country. I can't think of one off the top of my head. That's why I think St. Patrick's Day is such an interesting conversation to be had. So, happy St. Patrick's Day to all those who celebrate. Well, it's a little post St. Patrick's Day when I upload this, but St. Patrick's Day is March 17th every single year. And like I said, extremely popular holiday here in the United States. This holiday has spanned over 2 weeks this year, okay? If we're counting the week that I took to upload this podcast, 3. I'm going out, today's Friday, tomorrow's Saturday. Prior to St. Patrick's Day, I'm going out to celebrate this weekend. People were out celebrating St. Patrick's Day last weekend as well. I said, why? I think that America just has this lull where we don't have a holiday in between here and Easter. So whereas a lot of the other countries in the world have Carnival or Mardi Gras to celebrate right now, America doesn't have that really. So yeah, we've filled that lull with St. Patrick's Day, and this is our spring equinox celebration. So yeah, extremely popular holiday in America, full of colorful green outfits, citywide parades, and a performative pint of Guinness in the streets. But do most Americans even know what St. Patrick's Day celebrates? Hopefully Americans have some sort of idea that it has to do with the country of Ireland. I don't know if people know who St. Patrick is, and that's what I'm here for, to educate you a little bit about history. So, St. Patrick's Day celebrates St. Patrick's death in 461. St. Patrick was a Catholic saint who's known for driving the snakes out of Ireland. St. Patrick was originally born in Wales to a wealthy Roman family, and throughout the course of his life decided it was his purpose to go to Ireland to spread the word of Jesus. If you don't know, Ireland is a very Catholic country, even to this day. That's why I find Ireland to be such an interesting place. It has layers of history. But you know what's one thing that Ireland never had? Snakes. Ireland never had snakes. I was lucky enough to spend 2 weeks in Ireland, summer of 2024, and I had myself an absolute ball. I really got dosed in the Irish culture. I was there for the hurling championship in Dublin for the hurling championship. I was there for the Gaelic football championship. I got to go all across Dublin, Galway, Cliffs, Cork, and to Belfast. So not only did I get to experience the Republic of Ireland and the people within it, I also got to learn about Northern Ireland and the Troubles, something that I had no prior knowledge of. And if you're wondering, does Ireland celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Yes, they do. And if they celebrate at any degree close to how they did for the hurling championship, it's a party. But then again, I think Dublin is just constantly a party. That's why when we think of Irish culture, we think of drinking. It's Dublin is a very walkable city full of bars. Lots of people go out. Lots of tourists go there. And you go there and you Irish goodbye the people that you met in the bar and you stumble home in the streets. That is a trip to Dublin, baby. I didn't have an empty drink in my hand the whole entire night. Everything from asking who your leprechaun of a president is to having a supermax in between the daytime, nighttime party, and then inevitably dancing to traditional Irish fiddle music in the bar. It was cultural, to say the least. That's why I think it's okay for Americans to cut loose and celebrate Irish pride and St. Patrick's Day, because Americans need an excuse to party, honestly. They need a little bit more freedom. And it's funny to say that, but they need a little bit more partyism in their lives, really. But I still don't understand how St. Patrick's Day got to the level of popularity that it actually is in the United States. We have parades in every single city. Chicago dyes their river green, and suddenly everyone's ancestors are Irish. Imagine we as Americans celebrated any other saint's day of death in pride of a whole nother country's nationalism. It's fucking insane to think about. And all of this to celebrate a religious saint. That's what really gets me at the end of the day, is we're celebrating St. Patrick. So listen, let's go and dive into another layer of Irish history. Pre-Catholicism, pre-Christianity, Ireland was a pagan Celtic country. When I traveled to Ireland in 2024, I was hoping to find a little bit of mysticism in the place. Like I had when I had traveled to Iceland a few years prior, the paganism, mysticism is still very abundant there. Like the trolls, the Nordics, like all of it is still palpable. But when I arrived in Ireland, it wasn't like that. Now, granted, I showed up to Ireland with little knowledge of their history, but I was still surprised by the amount of trauma really layered in that land that's still being unpacked. So yes, I found lots of historical layers, but I found no snakes. And if you're not catching what I'm saying, the idea that St. Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland all comes back to this idea that St. Patrick got rid of the pagans in Ireland and pagan traditions and culture. But what St. Patrick actually did was, by preaching Christianity, allowed space for Ireland to be steamrolled by years of oppression by the Brits. Britain treated Ireland fucking terribly for hundreds of years. We all know about the famine, or at least we all should know about the famine. What about the forced work? What about the ruining their economy? What about the genocide of a people? This all took place in Ireland in, I believe, the 1500s, if I'm not mistaken. But honestly, it makes sense why us as Americans have made space to celebrate Irish culture and St. Patrick's Day. We have a lot in common. And you ask any Irishman and they'll say the same. A lot of Irish people love America. I mean, we both have a common enemy, a common oppressor, the British. We both wanted to be independent from the UK. And historically, a lot of Irish people immigrated to America, whether forced or not, in search of a better life or more work. And then the Irish people showed up to America, or the Americas, because they're also in Canada, and were treated terribly here too. Would you be surprised? Are you surprised? Because I'm not. That's why I personally am really happy for Ireland in 2025. I'm really glad that the Republic of Ireland is a positive example for the world of life after colonization. The Republic of Ireland is an independent nation, a progressive nation, and a nation that has a history of terrorism, but is navigating that in the most peaceful and positive way possible. I mean, let's take a look. Ireland has become part of the Schengen zone, part of Europe. They're on the euro. They're constantly speaking up for Palestine. They take stances that in the future will be on the right side of history. And they deserve that. Honestly, they do. Plus, in the last 25 years, they've been able to kind of unify. I know that they're not completely unified and the division still runs very, very deep within Ireland. But from the 90s to 2025, let me tell you, I feel like Ireland is a completely different place to live. I was born in 2002, so I was never alive for the Troubles. I never had even heard of the Troubles until I visited Belfast. I knew that it was part of Northern Ireland. I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting myself into, but I went to a couple museums and I got to learn more about the Troubles and more about the division that really is the United Kingdom versus the Republic of Ireland. Granted, I'm not one to say what the future of Ireland holds. I'm a fortune teller, but I can't tell the future. I have asked a couple of Irish people, like, whether or not they would want to unify with Northern Ireland, if Northern Ireland wanted to unify with them. It was literally 50-50, so I think that the country is still divided upon it, but they're allowed to be after bombs and terrorism and fighting that's been going on for generations within their soil. If I have one thing to say, though, it's Northern Ireland continuing to be part of the oppressor and part of the UK is a statement of their own, it's a statement that they get to make. And I don't think it makes you any less Irish to be part of Northern Ireland or from Northern Ireland, but I'm not Irish then again, so I have no room to talk. I think Dairy Girls is a fantastic show also, hysterical one, but two, also really interesting part of history to take place in. These girls are from Derry, which is in Northern Ireland, but a very divided place. And there's the subcontext, the subplot of what's actually going on within the walls of these cities, within this country in the 90s. But the main focus is that these girls are just teenagers and they're the same as any other teenagers in any other country, in any other place in the world. So yes, I recommend watching Dairy Girls if you feel like stepping into your Irish era, this St. Patrick's Day. Overall, I hope that Ireland continues to flourish and Americans take a second between their sip and their swallow this St. Patrick's Day to remember that oppression has rippled through most of our ancestors in some way here in the United States of America. And yet, here we are celebrating the resilience of a people. There is space to celebrate all types of people from all types of cultures in this country because the mixture of that is our history. So happy St. Patrick's Day. And as a pagan, this St. Patrick's Day, I'll be doing a little extra Irish jig over St. Patrick's grave for all of my brothers and sisters lost. And this is no hate to the Catholic Church. This is hate to historical oppression of people in a time where I can honor them and speak my mind. So thank you to all the ancestors out there, the descendants of ancestors who fought for freedom, who fought for their beliefs, who died while trying, who passed it on in their genes, and all the people who continue to celebrate and enjoy life in 2025 because of their struggle. Just for funsies, because I was curious, I did go around quizzing Americans this weekend about their knowledge of Irish history. Granted, I'm filming this prior to quizzing them, so I don't know how educated the American public is, but I've decided to include that at the end of this podcast. But yeah, bring a little education to the holiday. I hope that you are walking away from this with a little bit more knowledge about history, pagan history, Catholicism, oppression, suppression of people, and how all of that cultivates into creating the exact moment that we are in today, the holidays that we celebrate today, and how we celebrate them. Don't forget your history. Don't forget the past, because the more you know and the more knowledge you have, the more power you have. Knowledge is power. Never stop speaking up. Never stop speaking your mind, and keep on being you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Seven Aligned Podcast. I hope you learned something, and I hope you had a great St. Patrick's Day. If you ever make it to Ireland, please treat it with respect. Be safe. Be happy. Have a happy holiday. Bye, guys.